These are all 3 directors also, and those positions are 1-year positions. Every year we nominate folks for those positions. If you're interested in holding an office in the club, please consider that, because the club, this is meant to be a fun amongst friends. It's something we do. It's a hobby. We love it. And so consider that if you've never been an officer, or if you think you might be interested, put your hat in the ring and get for a nomination next month. And consider that, because the club is all of us. Everybody has ideas, and fresh ideas is good. So and the whole club is always here to help you, no matter what position that you're at. So also, I'd like everyone to start thinking about topics for next year. If you remember last year at this time, we started talking about, well, what do we want to talk about? And I've got a few items. I know we need to do a session on mite treatments again. I'd like to do some maybe hands-on on some winterizing things next year. But give me some ideas. Send me an email. This is the time for us to start roughing out what next year is going to look like. So also, if you have any friends or family who would like to become beekeepers, we have our next bee class scheduled on March the 4th. And we already have 3 people signed up for it. And I have a list of about 75 people, a list of names that we collected at the fairs and at Cherry City Honey, just people coming in and saying, hey, put me on your list for the next class. What I would do is, if any of you have any family members or anything that might want to get into the class, I would tell you to go ahead and have them get signed up. I'm going to start calling people about December the 1st from that list and go ahead and fill the class up. So just throwing that out there, might be a good Christmas present. I want to talk just a bit about presentations. I want to recognize a couple of people. Rosemary Clifford. Rosemary just did a presentation. Rosemary, who did you do the presentation for?
Middle Lawn Elementary to mostly the 5th graders.
5th graders.
Yeah, it was fun. I did it as part of the day.
Okay, good.
It was fun. We're by
Good.
We were by far the most. We were.
You're not just telling us that, are you?
No, they didn't want to hear about slavery. Yeah, the drones don't do anything that. I'm so warrior. No, the women. No, it's the food. No, the women. We had to do something to get them going.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Hey, and just a reminder, that's really our club's mission, is to educate the public, give presentations to groups, help other beekeepers, but we're all about education. And where's Rick Gillette? Rick, stand up there. Rick just did a presentation.
For the senior citizens matter.
Okay.
They enjoyed it. I went through the slide deck that you and Tammy put together, and they enjoyed that. Took in some beekeeping stuff and made an hour out.
Good. Tammy and I had the 3rd graders from the Bellevue ICS school. And then last week we had the Girl Scout troop from Bellevue out to the barn and did presentations for those groups. I think next week I've got the bus coming in from the veterans folks up in Sandusky. They're going to be coming out. And then we got a week after that, we got about a homeschool group, about 50 kids. So, I mean, the education thing, I mean, it's out there. Hey, and by the way, if you're somebody who you think, hey, I could do presentations, they're actually pretty easy. If you want to get your name on that list of presenters, Kim keeps a list of people in the group. I think we're up to what, 6 or 7 people, but we have people in the group, and we try to if there's a request that comes in, we put it out to the group. And we're trying to do that, make like a group of presenters that we would just send it out to them and say, hey, can anybody take this? And then we plan from there. So if it's something you think you'd be interested in, please let Kim know. I think that would be a good thing.
We actually have turned down some presentations because of no one being able to help out due to schedules and vacations. But we have had to say no, I think 3 groups.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a pretty big need out there for presentations. You'd be surprised. Especially once you do a presentation for the Girl Scouts, you can just imagine the next call I get is from the Cub Scouts. So, and we'll do them too. Hey, tonight, this is always one of the meetings I really look forward to of the year. And tonight we're going to talk about winterizing our hives. How many of you, this is your first year having hives? Okay, so this meeting, I mean, believe me, you can take a lot away from these meetings. There's a lot of experience. A few years ago, my hive losses were up around 60%. And I really began to pay attention to what other beekeepers in the club was doing. Things like how to control moisture, how to keep your bees from starving to death, how to keep the cold wind off of them. And so I started listening to other people in the club who's much more experienced than me. And so last year we cut our hive losses down to about 35%. Still a little higher than I'd like them to be, but that's still as good as the state average. And I attribute that to meetings like this, where I see something and I understand something a little bit better, and I like to implement like best practices. And so just keep that in mind as we go through this. Linda Miller is going to give the presentation tonight. So Linda's a very experienced beekeeper, and she's had really good success with overwintering hives. She's really went for winters and not lost any hives. And that's quite an accomplishment. Now I know there's a little bit of luck involved with this too. So, but what I want to do, I want to turn the floor over to Linda. When she gets to the point where we talk about sugar boards, I want to talk about some of the material that Tom Rathman presented last year when we did the sugar board workshop. And I'd like to do that maybe again next year, actually have a hands-on workshop, but I want to talk a little bit about that. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Linda.
Is that working? Anybody here? There, it's working. Okay. As Gary said, I'm Linda Miller. I've been doing bees for, I think 10 years. I kind of lose track, but I'm going to show you what I do when I winterize my bees. And everybody can do things a little different, but I've had a pretty good success rate. Last year, out of, I think I had 30 hives, I ended up losing 2. So I didn't think that was too bad. And those were pretty weak going into winter. So one of them I expected, one of them I didn't. There were 3 more that I thought died. And once the weather got warm, they were all there. So I ended up losing 2. This is a picture, I believe it was Michael Palmer's hives. And you can tell it's pretty bad. He's up by in northern New York and a little bit in New Hampshire. What am I doing wrong here?
Kind of close to the speaker.
Okay, there. Okay. This actually, we're a little bit past a few of these, but these are the times that you need to start really checking these things. And I'll go through each one of them. You want to check and treat for mites, see if your queen is healthy, whether you have sufficient bees
to make it through winter. Have a plan to feed them in the winter and decide whether or not you want to wrap your hives and how many frames you have. And in my case, I do not have to tie down my hives like with a big ratchet strap, but I know some people do. Okay, the most crucial. I know everybody's sick of hearing about mites, but it's really, really important. If you have a lot of mites, your bees probably will not make it. The other thing is you don't want to starve them to death. And then you want to have good ventilation. And I'll go through each one of these as we go. Okay, the queen. We're kind of past time right now for the queen. But you should, like in early August, mid-August, you should check your hives when you do your inspections to make sure that your queen is healthy. She's laying, you have brood, cap brood, eggs, everything going on. So I'll kind of keep that in the back of your head for next year. You want to see if there's a good pattern, all stages. And if there isn't, consider replacing her. Now, since it's already into October, I would use the last one on the list. Right now, I have 2 single 5-frame nukes that they were late swarms. They didn't build up real well. They probably would not make it through winter. So what I do is I take a weak hive, and I don't know, has anybody ever talked about the newspaper combined? I use newspaper, and I will dispatch the weakest queen, or if there is no queen, just still use the newspaper, put one on top of the other, cross my fingers that it makes it till spring.
What is dispatch?
Off of their head. Yes, and it's so hard to do. I hate to take out a queen. Okay, fall inspection. By now you should be removing your supers. And what I plan on doing, I've got a lot of supers that really aren't capped yet. As much goldenrod as I have by mind, I really didn't get a lot of goldenrod in my hives. So what I'm probably going to do is, since I've harvested a lot of honey this year, I will probably end up feeding it back to the bees this year. Usually I don't, but I will this year, and it is an option. But you want to take those frames when you remove them and freeze them. I like to do 48 hours. And that's just to make sure that you don't have hive beetle larvae, hive beetles, wax moths, or anything else, any little wee beasties that might be growing in your comb. And it's a good time of year that you'll get them. So I freeze them, kill them off, and then I seal them up in like big plastic bins, and it seems to work well. If you need to treat for mites, you're going to want to do that, whatever method you use. I always treat them usually about the end of October going into November, just to make sure that the mite counts are low for the winter. And you also want to check wax moth. I don't know how you really get rid of them. Hive beetles, you can put in traps or the Swiffer sheets or whatever it takes to get rid of them. I usually go through, and I'll get into it, but you're gonna maybe flip your deeps. And that's when I go through and make sure that the bottom board is all cleaned off, get any crud and little dead bugs or whatever off of it. Oh, you wanna flip the inner cover, and Gary can hold that up. In the winter, you know how the little notch is in it, you want that down. And that helps to ventilate the hive through the winter. In the summer, you've got it up, and in the winter, you turn it down. And it also, if by chance the front of the hive would be snow covered, it gives them a place that they can get in and out. And the mites. And like it says, you may have done everything perfectly, But if you go into fall with a mite load, chances are your bees will not be alive in the spring. They multiply like crazy and they just, like I said, everybody's tired of hearing about mites, but it really is a big deal. Okay, feeding. Most people, I think, run 10 frame, double deeps. And if you have the 2 deeps, you're gonna want at least 80 pounds of honey. I like to have even more if I can. There's some winters they'll go through it just really fast. And other years they don't so much. But you do want to make sure they have enough food. And if they're light, like right now, I know I've got a couple of them that are light. You're going to feed a 2-to-1 sugar water liquid to them. And you don't want to do that this time of year. The yellow jackets are started. You've got a lot of robbing. I would not suggest using the front hive feeders, Boardman feeders that go into the front entrance, because that will attract yellow jackets like crazy. You're going to want to either do a in-hive feeder, a float feeder, something that's covered where the yellow jackets aren't going to smell it. On my nukes, I have lids that have the hole, and I'll put the jar in there, and that seems to work fine. And I do have some in-hive feeders, but you really want to watch, because once those get cold, they can chill the whole hive in a big hurry come about December, January. So you want to make sure that once you fed them, you pull those out and replace some frames in there. The honey frames, when you go in for your inspection, put your honey as close to the brood as you can. I mean, sometimes you might have just a little spot of brood on one or whatever, but squeeze that honey in, because they're gonna, when the bees feed through winter, they go up through the center. And that's the frames they're gonna hit first. And a lot of times you'll have, come spring, you'll still have full honey frames on the outside of your deeps that the bees never touched, and yet they can starve to death. So as close as you can get it is good. And you should start thinking about how you want to feed right now. I use that AP23. I make a pollen patty, which I'll get into. And I bought enough last year that I don't have to buy it this year, but I wouldn't be surprised, but it's getting a little pricey. So you might want to order it. There was a shortage of it last year, so that's why I ordered more than I really needed. And a shim. Now, this is something you can use the sugar boards for if you want. I just use the shim. There's no screen in mine because I do the patties. Okay, there's the sugar boards. And Gary has those for sale. And you want to tell them how to make that up?
Well, I'll just mention it. So on, everybody hear me okay? Okay. All right, on the sugar board frames, you can get a 10 frame or an 8 frame. We also have sugar board frames for nukes. But just let me, I brought a sugar board here that we had left over from last year. You know, if you think about this, if you got a hive full of honey and you put this sugar board on the top, the sugar board is really like a last ditch supply of food for a hive. So last year, I think we had probably a dozen sugar boards that were never touched by the bees that were in those hives. And so I'll hold this up and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Everybody see this? This was made with a 10-pound bag of sugar. And we put a 2x4 right in the middle of it. And we pack it down. We've got recipe sheets up here tonight that you can take with you to go through how to make one of these. But, you know, these things, a sugar board has a lot of advantages. Well, one thing it'll do, the sugar, you know, it's really hard. I mean, it's like a rock, but it helps out with moisture. So Tammy and I used to use patties. We make the Krabby Patties like Linda makes. And I don't know what it was, we had a lot of problems with moisture. And our patties would get a lot of moisture on them. And I noticed on the hives that didn't make it, we had a lot of moisture. We were always fighting with moisture. And so one of the things we did is we transitioned over to sugar boards. Yeah.
Come up here. So they can see it. People are asking. In here.
I take it people out in Zoom land would like you to come up front. All right, sorry about that. So I want to talk just about these sugar boards. You know, they absorb moisture, so they will help you out with that. There's also, if you notice, there's about I guess that's about a 1/2 inch hole in the front of that sugar board. Everybody see that? So, you know, if you think about it, just above this sugar board is going to be your inner cover that's flipped over. So now I've got 2 vent spaces to get rid of some of that moisture that's coming off of those warm bee bodies that's down there, you know, shivering and making all that heat in the hive. So, you know, I got to get rid of that. I got to get rid of that moist, warm vapor because I don't want it back on my bees. I want to dissipate as much of it as I can. And so that's what I found with the sugar board. We sell these frames at Cherry City Honey if you need one. The nice thing is if you buy them once, you never have to buy them again. You use them over year after year. And then like me, I use these 24 by 24 Ziploc bags. And if the bees don't bother the sugar board, I just bag it up and use it the next year. So the boards are pretty sturdy. They were made of hardware cloth and pine lumber. And so last year, Tom Rathman did a demonstration on how to make these. And then Tammy and I transitioned over to these last year. They were easier to make than I thought. Once Tom showed us how to do it, but actually I think they're pretty good. So I'll shut up.
Okay.
What's that? Well, actually, the recipe has you use very little water in a tub with 10 pounds of sugar. And so the sugar is not real wet, but when you start, you know, you got a piece of wax paper that's down on the hardware cloth. And I lay my 2x4 in there. And then we just start packing the sugar right down onto the sugar board. And it's not real runny or anything. We just sitting in the barn, it just gets as hard as a rock. And so they're not real hard to make. You know, and it's only a 10-pound bag of sugar. It's pretty reasonable in price. And we used to make the patties, and those were, and you know, the bees like the patties. But I thought the sugar boards were easier to make, I guess. So, all right, I'll shut up.
Huh. That's just a little bit about the sugar boards.
Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like when you mix those up, it might be just a girly thing, I don't know, but if you're at the beach and you're running wet sand and you're dripping it to build your castles, and it's kind of moist when it's stacking up, that's kind of the moisture that those are when you pack them. I don't know another good explanation for it. And the other thing that's nice about the sugar boards is Gary said you can pack them and reuse them. You can also break them up, mix them with water and feed them back to the bees in the spring when you're making your 1-to-1 sugar mixture.
Yeah, Linda, one thing I forgot to mention is, if you make a sugar board, make sure that you don't put it on until after Thanksgiving. Usually we put ours on the week after Thanksgiving. And just a little experience that I heard about was, you know, if you put them on too early, yellow jackets will just be all over your hive. So wait till it's well after the frost, like the week after Thanksgiving, put your sugar boards on.
Watch it go in and out of that front entrance. So, Brad's already taken number 8 cardboard box, just a little 2-inch by 2-inch and staple it with a hole. And so the wasp can't get inside that or the yellow jackets. But I always just wait for everything, Thanksgiving, after that good frost, yellow jackets are gone. Then put them on.
Okay. I happen to be one of those people that uses winter patties. Either way works. I never had a moisture problem with them, but I don't know why. Well, I'll go through this and then I'll hit it all. Okay, it's made, the winter patties are a mixture of sugar, pollen substitute, and water. And you don't want your pollen substitute in that mixture to be more than 5%, because the bees need a lot more carbs to vibrate, keep the cluster warm and everything through the winter. They don't necessarily need the protein because the queen isn't really laying that much. They aren't feeding a lot of bees like they normally would. And if you give them too much protein, they get diarrhea is what happens. It's nosema. So you don't really want that. And yeah, and they more carbs, less protein. There is a video on the Cherry City YouTube page. And also the recipe is on our club website, which the club address is there. And then you need to make sure in the spring, once the weather starts getting warm, sometimes I'll go in, usually, well, I check them a lot, but usually about March, I start really watching to see how warm the weather is. And to see, are they eating these patties? Sometimes they'll wipe them out in a week. Other times they're in there in the spring yet. They hardly touch them. It really depends on how much food they go through. But you don't want to leave them in once the weather starts to warm, because the hive beetles will smell them. And believe me, they attack them. So I go through as the weather gets warmer and they really don't have any food to eat. I will end up just putting in maybe a little 2-inch section, 2-inch square section, and check it every few days to make sure that, are they eating it? If they aren't eating it, I'll take it out. What will happen if you feed them too much? If there's a lot of pollen coming in, it's telling the queen, oh man, pollen, I need to start laying more than a few hundred eggs a day. And she'll start ramping it up to about 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day once she has that protein. Well, what happens is the hive builds up so fast and you can hit 50, 60,000 bees in that hive. And then the queen's going to go, oh my God, I need to swarm. And they're going to want to take off. So what happens is if you don't have drones yet, they're going to leave queen cells, but there's nothing for those queens to mate with. So I know some of you never knew Angel Mitchell, but she started feeding pollen in February. And I think, what was it, 6 swarms in one day, Tom? We were over there trying to help her collect all these swarms. Well, she had queen cells, but the drones weren't out yet. So it's a good way to lose a lot of bees. I usually wait I won't feed pollen until I start seeing some drone brood showing up in the hive, just to make sure that that doesn't happen. Okay, moisture. I'm going to go back to the sugar board versus the pollen patties. Gary is absolutely correct. The sugar boards will help draw moisture. And I've not had a problem with it, but we'll get into some ventilation a little bit. But either one of these work. I'm retired and I have time. I go out usually every week to 10 days and look inside my hives all through winter, starting usually about mid-December. I'll start checking them. And if you're a working person, it's hard to do because a lot of people get home from work, it's already dark. You need to get out and check your bees, and you got birthday parties over the weekend. And if that's your life, I would say use a sugar board because either one of them will work fine. But moisture, you need to have circulation going. Moisture is really bad on bees. And what I do, I put a shim underneath the backside of my hives. So when the moisture rises and collects on that inner cover and lid, you want it to run forward. So it kind of runs forward, runs down the front of the inside of the hive and out. If you have it like for snow melt, if you had snow melting on your landing board, if you don't have that tipped a little bit, all that moisture is going to run inside. And you want to have good air circulation, hence the notch in the board and the holes in the shims or sugar boards, whichever one that you use. I angle, I think on these it wasn't done that way. When I drill the holes in my shims, I angle them so they're going up. I have to think about this. So if you do get rain or snow running, it's not going to get in that hole and drip down in. You want to angle it to try and avoid the rain or snow. Cover screen. Yeah, Gary covered that. You kind of threw me off here. Okay. Oh, and a float feeder. Are you selling those this year, Gary?
I'm out of them right now.
Okay, for those of you that have float feeders, you can fill that with wood shavings to help absorb moisture. I do not have those. I am a really cheap beekeeper, which is another reason I don't do. Yeah, conservative. But that's one reason I don't do sugar boards too, is because I have 30 hives. I don't want to go out and buy 400 or 500 pounds of sugar. It's just not going to happen. It's easier for me to do the patties. And it's the same way with float feeders. Everything gets pricey. Okay, wind versus cold. Bees can usually stand the cold. If you have a healthy hive, they've got a nice cluster, they can withstand the cold. What they can't stand is cold winds blowing through the hive. And they have their own little microclimate in there around that cluster, and they'll vibrate and keep the brood warm, keep the queen warm. But when the wind comes in the front and up through that hive, it makes it really difficult for them to do. And I think we probably covered it in the beginner's class, how they stay warm is by vibrating their wing muscles. And they do, just like, can't think of the name of the penguin movie, whatever it was. You know how penguins rotate? They switch out. Bees will do the same thing. And they'll just vibrate, keep everything warm. And I use entrance reducers. And I was showing them earlier. I don't know if anybody can see this. It's a pipe wrap, just foam It's just a little piece of pipe wrap. And you know how it's cut? I cut it again, cut them in half. And all I do is pinch it together, stick it in the opening, and just leave a little bit for the bees to get in and out. Unless I have the long wraps, but that's a good way also for robbing. And it's easy. You guys were talking about using the vaporizer, and it's very easy to pop them in, pull them out, and pop them back in if you have to. It's just a little suggestion. Normally, I'll show you my hives. I do not put on entrance reducers other than for robbing. Okay, winter wraps. I try my best to get out and mow and weed whack around my hives before winter hits. And sometimes it's hard to get done because it's cold, but it keeps moisture from building up under your hives, especially if you're using screen bottom boards. You get a lot of moisture that's coming up from the grass. And also it's nice and easy for the mice to crawl up a goldenrod spike or something that might be around the bottom of your hive. So I wrap mine just to block the wind. There are people that will use styrofoam. I did not have luck with that. What happened to me, it was my first year keeping bees. I thought, oh, I'm gonna just do everything perfect. Put styrofoam wraps all around, took them off in the spring, and the water just ran out from behind them, plus about 10 zillion ants. The ants found a nice warm place in there, and my hives were just white with eggs and ants and everything else. So now I've gone to this epaulet. You can use black roofing paper. You don't want to block the ventilation holes, and I'll show you a picture. And you don't want to wrap it so tight that it won't let the moisture out from behind it. Okay, roofing paper, the tar paper, to me is kind of hard to work with because usually when I'm working in my bees, I'm by myself and it's a little hard to handle. But I had gone out to buy a roll of it, and I noticed this epaulet. It was still when Gordon Lumber was around. I love it. Gary has some. It's the weight of a heavy trash bag, like a super heavy trash bag. And it takes 2 pieces to go around the hive. And the black helps absorb some heat. It's loose enough that you don't get a moisture buildup. But when you put it on, whatever you do, don't put it so high that you cover the holes of the shims. You want to keep it, I usually put it just right below those holes because you don't want to block that air circulation. The other thing I do is, I'll get to the next picture. The hive on the right is mine, and you can see that I have a foam board on there. The first 2 are roofing paper, but you can see how they're wrapped. And this picture is not going to show up, is it? No, okay, we'll go back to this. You can see the bees, this was in February. There was still snow on the ground. And the bees, I'm going to have to walk up in front of this a minute. Here is my bottom board. And you can see I have an opening cut right there, but I leave this long and drape it around the bottom. And if the video would, I couldn't get the video to work, but you can see them going in and out, and they're also going in and out around the inner cover. But it seems to work really well for me, but because of draping them down around, I don't wrap the bottom, I just kind of pull them around.
You use bungee cords and stapler?
I staple them on. it blocks the winds, which is why I don't use the entrance reducer.
You do all 4 sides.
Yes, well, that's supposed to play the video, but it's not gonna, as hard as I wanted to make it work today.
So after you wrap them, you take the entrance reducers out, or you take them off and then wrap them?
I'll be honest with you, I never put them in.
Okay.
Because they're wrapped. By the time the cold wind hits, I have my wraps on.
You said you have that pipe insulation.
I do that for robbing. But you can use it as an entrance reducer for winter also.
So you
I just don't.
Oh,
Yeah, I do use it a lot for robbing when the robbing season comes. I was out there today and I saw no robbing. Knock on wood. We'll see. Okay, mouse guards. Gary's got a good example, once again, the conservative way of you getting mouse guards. Again, I have 30 hives. I'm not gonna go out and buy the things from Man Lake and Better Bee and everything to be a mouse guard. I usually just use the wire, just bend it in half, pop it in. The bees can get in and out, but the mice can't. And the only thing that can actually pull them out, I don't put screws in them or tape them or anything, but I know a raccoon can pull them. I've seen that. But you can get a mouse nest in your hive and they are nasty. They're just nasty. And you can see that they'll be chewing the wood. You're going to have urine and feces all over in the area where they are. Now the bees have been known to kill them and they will propolize them, just like make a mummy out of them down in a corner of the hive. But usually by the time they get all that done, the damage is already done. So you really want to watch for mice. Oop. Oh, here we are at mouse guards, and there's the number 4 mesh is I think what that is. Is that what yours is, Gary? Yeah. And it does work pretty well. Okay. I think this is probably the last one. You do want to check your food stores, even if you're using a sugar board. I have seen bees go through them pretty fast. And like Gary said, another time you can open them up in the spring and they haven't touched it. I always try to see if you're going to have a few dead bees in front of your hive. I mean, that's normal, bees die. But if you have like an overabundant pile of them, it's of course a sign that there's an issue. And they can also pile up in your entrance to your hive. What I use is either my hive tool, kind of try and clean that out, and a coat hanger works good. Just a bent coat hanger to stick it in there and just pull the dead bees out from the bottom board so it doesn't keep the bees from moving around. And I usually like it to be at least 30 and sunny before, like when I check my patties, I go out, I pop the lid and I look and I shut it. If I need a patty, I'll go get the patty, pop the lid, toss it in and shut it. And that's just how I do mine. I've never really had to clean snow from the entrance. I might be different this year, but you do want to, if you can, keep the snow out from the entrance. And the other thing, don't assume your bees are dead. Like I said earlier, they can be in torpor. I had to listen to this. I can never say that. It's a tongue twister. And the bees will appear to be dead. I mean, they're just hanging on the comb. They're not moving. They're not doing anything. And then the sun hits them and they're all over the place. It's just their way of survival, especially if it's a small hive. And I know there's one more thing I didn't cover. Okay, rotating your hive. It's probably in there and I missed it. Your hive bodies, and we covered this, I'm pretty sure in the beginners class. but you have two hive bodies. Your cluster's in the center. Now, when I go through, hopefully tomorrow, I'll get through mine. If my bees are all in the top, I'm gonna rotate those deeps. Because bees go up, make sure there's honey above them. But now if you have half the cluster in the bottom, half the cluster in the top, the last thing you want to do is rotate those. Because when you do, you've got a cluster part here, and the bees cannot keep that warm because you've split them. But if your bottom box is empty of brood, you do want to rotate it. Makes them happier. I don't think, did I miss anything? Anybody have questions?
With your winter patties, do you put a spacer in your, on the top?
No.
You just
When-
put your,
When I do the winter patties, I have shims, but there's no, I suppose you can put the screen in. I just lay mine, I put a shim on and lay mine right across the frames, and it's on wax paper. And they will, as the patty shrinks, they will remove that wax paper from the hive.
Clarify on the shims a bit, so you're talking just the cover? Take the cover?
The shim goes directly on the top hive body. It just sits right on there, then your inner cover, then your lid.
What's the ventilation hole that you're talking about?
Gary can show you, I have them on the shims and they're also in the sugar boards. If you can see the hole,
and then you tilt the lid, you said?
I tilt the whole hive.
Oh, the whole hive. Okay.
I tilt the whole hive, yeah.
I think that's really cool.
And you can tilt it with just of course, my hives, stands have been there long enough, they're not all even. I use like a 1/2 inch piece of scrap. You can use shim shingles or whatever you have that will just lean that enough forward to make the water run to the front. We good on time?
What thickness is your shim between the inner cover and the hive body?
I don't. Oh, you mean the thickness of the wood itself? I don't know who asked
How much,
that.
it's on the,
What are they, 1/2 inch?
how much
3?
space? How much space, how much?
Oh, how high is it?
It's about 2 inches.
Yeah, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Yeah, a shim spacer, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, mine were sugar boards and I just pulled I got tired of my hands being ripped up and I pulled the mesh off because I didn't really need it. We good?
I thought I saw another hand go up over there.
Oh, Terry. I tried screen bottom boards and I don't care for them personally. I do have some nukes with screen bottoms that I'm going to switch out to solid. And you can put that piece of board in there, to close up the screen. I found out that they propolized it and it took 3 men in price to get the thing back out. So I don't like, they don't slide in and out like you think they're gonna, because they were just so propolized. And I just have quit using them basically.
Maybe that's why you've had such good luck with the bees. You got 3 men in price.
It might be. Yeah. Jim.
You're talking about the ventilation. I always set mine up on the inner cover in front of the lid. I never had a hosting problem.
You do what?
I set the lid up on the inner cover right on the edge. So that
Oh, okay.
that give me, that stopped all my moisture problems. I've done that.
You don't have trouble with robbing.
No. I never-
Sweet.
I even done it on the hot summer days. I would prop it up.
Yeah, I have done that.
I give it more ventilation.
Yeah,
And that stuff on my water problem, because I don't speak.
because of moisture. Yeah.
I just think the net didn't open it up and set it on the edge of the inner cover. Or not inner cover, but on the, yeah, inner cover.
On the inner
Right
cover.
on the edge of the inner cover.
Yeah, Jim's trying to explain, he'll take his lid and set it, the edge of it, right on the edge of the inner cover. And it creates a little more ventilation in there.
It keeps the water from running in.
Yeah.
It's same as you do, you jack it up in the front, I didn't do it, I just let it run.
Okay.
I had a good guy that teach me.
Okay. Yeah.
For the ventilation openings, like the hole or whatever, is it better than south facing, try to do that?
I don't think it really matters. She asked if it mattered which way the ventilation hole faced. I think the whole idea is just so it can come in through the bottom and circulate out of the top. Yeah.
Linda, a question on the Zoom. You mentioned using a pipe insulation and stuffing it in the entrance to create an inexpensive reducer. Are there also mouse guards in this setup? Is
No.
the insulation up against the hardware cloth? It's in there by itself, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's in there by itself. They can't see me when I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's right on there. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just this insulation. Pinch it, slide it in. That's it.
Yep.
I didn't know I was on it. Yeah.
We got a question in the back. Oh, go ahead.
The question was when I wrap my hives, and I'll probably do them usually after Thanksgiving. Yeah, right. Another
We got a
question?
question in the back of the room. Hold on, I'll take a microphone back there.
Oh, quilt boxes? Did you say quilt boxes? No, I do not use quilt boxes. I do have the foam on the top, outside the lid. Wait a minute, Jim, I can't hear you. Okay.
I put styrofoam right underneath the rooming in the top. I made one. Yeah.
Oh, inside the
I was
lid?
like you, I had to take it off because it was dance. They were a big problem. And that's the same thing.
Okay.
Hey, do we have any more questions? We're approaching the 8 o'clock
Oh, we're doing this.
time. We got just a couple of more things that we need to do. Any more questions? All right. One thing we need to do is for folks that want to
Can I not turn it off?
Well, you should be, do the other. Yeah, you should be able to. Do the other side. There you go.
Hey, one thing we need to do is two things. We need to hand out the honey bears for people that want to fill them with honey and bring them back next month to the meeting. And then we're also going to have some door prizes. Yeah, let's.
Which one didn't you get?
The one right after that, options. Mouse guard options. If I put one in, I know what I want to do.
Okay, that's it.
Mike, can you hear me? That's all right. Yeah. I told him.
I know it's noisy. No, it's okay out there. We got the TV going on. Camera time. This lady is with the state organization, which is a club. And she has like 30 times. And she only lost 2 in the past year. The average is the matches. You only lost 2, 30. Good. So she's giving a presentation of what she is.
guys have a good time.
We're gonna try.
All right, I'm gonna get off of here.
Yeah, big hugs to you.
Yeah.
You're smiling. Boy.
There's an ice setting. I don't know if it actually lights up. Oh, a guy sent me a message. Some guy named Rob. Nice background, Doug. Try the beach in the middle of winter. Gary's gonna put my message in there.